After deciding to stay, Mark's team continued their research on the mysterious city on the moon. They knew that whatever was hidden here could change human history. Sarah scanned data from the control center, trying to decipher the system of symbols they had found all over the city. Ethan kept examining the city's energy source, while Dr. Lee analyzed the technology they had collected. Something isn't right, Dr. Lee suddenly whispered. Mark turned to her. Did you find something? Dr. Lee pointed to a data panel on the screen. The city's systems are not completely shut down. There's a central part still functioning, but it's being masked by some kind of interference signal. Another control center? Ethan frowned. Possibly. And it seems like it's transmitting a signal outward. Dr. Lee said with concern. Sarah checked the communication systems. Not just sending, but receiving a response. Mark immediately felt tense. Someone, or something, is answering this signal. Outside the window of the Lunar Odyssey spacecraft, a faint blinking light appeared in the night sky of the moon. It moved slowly, but it was clear that this was no natural phenomenon. What is that? Ethan whispered. The whole team watched in silence. Something was approaching. The strange light in the lunar sky continued to blink, moving at a steady speed, but clearly not a natural object. Can we zoom in? Mark asked. Sarah quickly adjusted the Lunar Odyssey's observation system. When the screen displayed a clearer image, the team held their breath. A strange spacecraft was approaching them. It bore no markings of NASA, or any known Earth organization. Its shape was unlike any human-made design. Its smooth, dark surface reflected light in an eerie way, as if it was absorbing rather than reflecting it. This isn't one of ours, Ethan said, his voice dry. Then whose is it? Dr. Lee asked, but no one had an answer. Sarah checked the signals. It's transmitting something, directed at this city. Mark clenched his jaw. Could it be the ones who built this city? Before anyone could theorize further, a voice echoed through their communication system. We know you are there. The team froze. The voice was deep and steady, but not entirely human. There was a strange distortion, as if something not of Earth was speaking to them. Sarah swallowed hard. They, or it, is talking to us. Mark took a deep breath. We have to respond. He pressed the communication button. Who are you? A long silence followed. Then the voice spoke again. This is not your world. Leave, before it is too late. At that moment, the mysterious spacecraft emitted a powerful beam of light. Something had been activated, and it didn't look friendly. The alien spacecraft hovered above the moon's surface, radiating a bright light that illuminated the surroundings. Lunar Odyssey's warning systems started flashing. Sarah checked the data, her voice urgent. It's generating an energy field around us. Is it attacking? Ethan asked, eyes locked on the radar screen. Unclear. But the city's signals are changing. Dr. Lee said, her hands trembling as she analyzed the data. It seems like the city's system just activated something, a response mechanism. Mark clenched his fists. We can't just sit here and wait to be wiped out. We have to communicate with them. He activated the communication system, his voice firm. Who are you? Why are you forbidding us from being here? A long silence. Then the strange voice spoke again, this time colder. You have trespassed upon a place that does not belong to you. We have warned you. If you do not leave immediately, we cannot ensure your survival. Sarah held her breath. They're giving us an ultimatum. Ethan gritted his teeth. So, either we leave, or we're destroyed. Dr. Lee suddenly spoke up, her eyes lighting up as if she had realized something. Wait. Maybe this is a test. If this city is truly a relic of an ancient extraterrestrial civilization, perhaps they don't want to destroy us, but to test if we are worthy. Mark thought for a moment, then nodded. Then we have to prove it. He turned on the microphone and spoke slowly but confidently. We did not come to conquer or destroy. We only seek knowledge and understanding. If you truly believe that this place does not belong to us, then give us a chance to prove that we are worthy. The alien ship did not respond immediately. Its lights flickered continuously, as if analyzing every word Mark had said. The team held their breath, waiting for the judgment of a being they did not yet understand. The space around them remained silent, only the alien ship's lights blinking rhythmically, as if contemplating Mark's words. Lunar Odyssey's systems continued to warn of the energy field surrounding them. Sarah was worried. We don't know how they will decide. If they see us as a threat, we may never leave here. Ethan clenched his fists. So, if they attack, do we have a plan B? Dr. Lee spoke calmly but firmly. The most important thing right now is to remain calm. If this is truly an advanced civilization, they won't act rashly. Suddenly, the cold and distant voice spoke again. You say you seek knowledge. But your kind has destroyed what it does not understand. Mark gripped the microphone tightly, trying to stay calm. We are not all of humanity. We are explorers, seekers of truth. Let us prove it. A long pause. Then, the alien ship slowly lowered its altitude, its lights dimming. A soft blue light shone from it, scanning Mark's team. Sarah gasped. What are they doing? Dr. Lee checked the scanning system and whispered, they are analyzing us, maybe to see if we are telling the truth. The light enveloped them for a few seconds, then faded. The alien ship remained still, as if thinking. Finally, the voice spoke again, this time less cold but still cautious. We will give you a chance. But remember, knowledge comes with a price. If you seek the truth, be prepared for what it brings. At that moment, a mysterious door in the ancient city opened, revealing a passage leading deep underground. Mark took a deep breath and turned to his team. This is our chance. Do we go in, or turn back? The team exchanged glances, knowing this decision would change everything. The mysterious door slowly opened, revealing a dark corridor leading underground. A cold gust of air rushed out, carrying a strange metallic scent. Mark looked at his team, determination in his eyes. This is our only chance to find the truth. But I won't force anyone to go with me. Ethan clenched his fists. What are you talking about? We've come this far, there's no turning back. Sarah nodded. I agree. If we're here, we have to see it through. Dr. Lee adjusted her glasses. We have to be careful. This could be a test, or a trap. Mark took a deep breath and stepped inside first. The team followed closely, their suit lights illuminating the dark hallway. Inside, metallic walls glowed faintly, covered in strange symbols and intricate patterns. Sarah recorded everything with a 3D scanner. This system is still active. Dr. Lee murmured as she touched a glowing panel. Suddenly, the symbols on the wall shifted, and a holographic image appeared before them, a tall humanoid figure with glowing eyes and silver-toned skin. A foreign voice echoed, but this time, Sarah's translation system activated. You have entered the place where our history is kept. If you truly seek the truth, prove your worth. At that moment, another door opened, revealing a massive chamber. Inside, a giant glowing sphere hovered, radiating a soft blue light. Ethan swallowed. I don't know what we're about to face, but it will change everything. Mark stepped forward, his eyes full of determination. We will find the truth. We need to get out of here immediately. Mark shouted as the ancient city's system began to tremble. The glowing sphere flickered violently, and the strange symbols on the walls started shifting, as if they were trying to convey one final message. Dr. Lee quickly recorded everything. This information could be the key to preventing a disaster. Sarah activated her scanner and spoke urgently. We have an exit ahead, but it doesn't lead back to the Lunar Odyssey. We'll have to find another way. Ethan took the lead, following the signal on the map. They sprinted down a long corridor, where energy pillars began collapsing behind them. Hurry! This city is falling apart. Mark urged. Suddenly, from up ahead, a massive mechanical arm shot out, blocking their path. A guardian machine from the ancient civilization was still operational. Sarah gasped. It's recognizing us as intruders. Mark pulled out his laser gun, but Dr. Lee quickly stopped him. No. If it's programmed to protect the secret, attacking it will only make it stronger. Thinking fast, Ethan scanned its data and spotted an override command. I need 30 seconds to disable it. We don't have 30 seconds. Sarah yelled as the mechanical arm prepared to strike. Mark looked around frantically, then rushed to an old control panel and slammed a button with a strange symbol. Boom. The machine suddenly deactivated, its arm lowering to reveal a passageway. Ethan exhaled in relief. What did you do? Mark stared at the symbol on the control panel. I just bet that this was an emergency command, and luckily, I was right. Wasting no time, they dashed past the disabled machine and into the tunnel ahead. But as soon as they reached the end of the tunnel, they froze. In front of them wasn't an exit, but a chamber containing something massive. Sarah's mouth fell open, her heartbeat quickening. My God! This might be what they used to seal away that entity. Mark's team had ventured too deep into the mysteries of this civilization. And now, they faced a decision that could alter the fate of all humanity. The team stood frozen before the enormous chamber, where a mysterious machine stood with intricate designs and pulsing blue lights. What is this? Sarah murmured, her eyes fixed on the ancient inscriptions carved along the stone pillars. Dr. Lee scanned the data, her face turning pale. If I'm not mistaken, this is the machine used to seal away the entity. Ethan clenched his fists. So if it stops working, the entity will be released, Dr. Lee said, her voice tense. Mark stepped closer and placed his hand on the machine's surface. Suddenly, a holographic image appeared, a tall being with silver eyes, resembling the ancient inhabitants they had seen before. A deep, sorrowful voice echoed through the chamber. If you are hearing this, it means the seal is weakening. The entire team stood in silence. The entity we sealed away cannot be destroyed, only contained. We sacrificed everything to keep it imprisoned. But if you are here, then your time may be running out. Sarah was stunned. It's about to break free. A violent tremor shook the ground beneath them. The sealing machine sparked with energy surges, clear signs of it being overloaded. We have to do something. Ethan shouted. Mark scanned the room, his heart pounding. If they didn't find a way to stabilize the seal, the entity would escape and threaten Earth itself. There is one way, Dr. Lee said, her voice trembling slightly. But it could be a double-edged sword. Mark's team had only one choice: would they reinforce the seal, or find a way to destroy the entity permanently? Time was running out. Mark stood motionless, his fists clenched. The entire team exchanged tense glances, no one speaking a word. Every second that passed, the sense of danger grew stronger. If we reinforce the seal, Dr. Lee said anxiously, it might hold for a long time, but we don't know what effects it will have on Earth. It could trigger unforeseen consequences. Sarah looked around, tension in her eyes. Then what if we try to destroy it? Can we just destroy this machine, and make the entity disappear? It's not that simple, Dr. Lee answered, her hands trembling. It was sealed with an ancient energy, something extremely powerful. Destroying this machine might not just release the entity, but also unleash energy we can't control. Mark turned back to the machine, its blinking blue lights flashing like a warning. We don't have time to hesitate. If we don't act now, the entity will escape and destroy everything. Earth won't stand a chance. Ethan stepped forward, his eyes firm. Then we have to face it. Save Earth. If we don't do it, who will? Mark looked at his team, his heart heavy. We have to destroy the machine. With that decision made, the team stepped closer to the machine, where warning lights flickered menacingly. Mark pulled out a control tool from his backpack, and began working on the console. The machine's lights flickered, and metallic sounds echoed through the chamber, making the air feel even heavier. Be careful. Dr. Lee warned, her voice uneasy. Mark kept working as he spoke quickly. Stay calm. We only have one shot at this. As soon as he activated the deactivation command, a massive explosion roared, and the machine began shaking violently. The glowing sphere in the room flared like a storm. The team scrambled backward, alarmed. We have to get out of here. Sarah shouted as they ran toward the exit, the entire room collapsing around them. Just as they reached the doorway, a gigantic energy wave surged forward. They barely managed to leap out in time, but a powerful light from the collapsing chamber erupted, swallowing everything. Mark fell to the ground, the light fading. Was it too late? He wondered, closing his eyes, uncertain if they had truly saved Earth. The entire world now had only one final chance. The team lay sprawled on the ground as the massive energy wave surged forward. Fortunately, a colossal rockfall behind them blocked the force, shielding them from being vaporized. Mark gasped for breath, struggling to his feet. We're alive, he shouted in relief. Sarah touched a small wound on her arm, her eyes still wide with fear. But we need to get out of here fast. The machine is destroyed, and the entity. She hesitated, unable to finish. The entity will be free, Dr. Lee said firmly. It's time we face it. Mark looked at the collapsing chamber and shook his head. No, we can't let it escape. If we can't seal it again, the entire planet will be doomed. Ethan checked the map, squinting. The exit is on the other side. We need to get back to the ship. If we don't, the entity could follow us into space and cause an unimaginable disaster. With no time to waste, they started running, dodging debris from the destroyed machine. Dim emergency lights continued flashing, and the echoes of falling ruins heightened the tension. As they sprinted through narrow corridors, they found a hidden door leading to what they hoped was an escape route. But when they opened it, they froze in horror. What is this? Sarah gasped, staring at a massive glowing machine emitting a deep rumble from within. It wasn't the sealing machine, it was something else. A device designed to unleash the ultimate energy, stronger than anything humanity had ever known. Mark's eyes widened in realization. This is the power source the entity needs to fully awaken. A deep, chilling voice echoed through the room. The gateway is open. You cannot stop me. A colossal black hand emerged from the darkness. The entity was awakening. Now. Mark roared, and the team prepared for their final confrontation. Mark stared at the ruins ahead. We're not out of danger yet. Don't celebrate too soon. The entire planet is still a threat. Dr. Lee nodded. There are still many unanswered questions. But at least, we've stopped this catastrophe. Mark's team stood silently, gazing at the room where only fragments of the terrifying entity remained. They couldn't have known that, deep in the darkness, something else was watching them, preparing for a new confrontation. But today, they had won. The light from the explosion still lingered in the air, reflecting off their spacesuits. The sealing machine had been completely destroyed, and the entity had been eradicated, at least, they thought so. Mark stepped forward to examine the remaining debris. The molten metal on the ground still glowed, radiating a strange energy. My sensors are still detecting an energy waveform, Ethan said, eyes locked on the screen. It's different from before, but there's still something here. Dr. Lee crouched down, took a small sample, and scanned it with her analyzer. This isn't just a piece of debris. It's still emitting a signal. Sarah frowned. What do you mean? Dr. Lee looked around, her expression tense. I'm not sure. But if I'm right, then maybe that entity hasn't completely disappeared. The group fell silent. A chill ran down Mark's spine. They had given everything to stop it, but if traces of it still remained, then perhaps it wasn't truly destroyed. Beep. 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 A strange signal rang from Mark's communicator. He stiffened and quickly checked the screen. Houston, do you copy? But the voice coming through the speaker wasn't from NASA. You have awakened something you cannot control. Mark's heart nearly stopped. That voice wasn't human. It was deep, resonant, as if it came from a distant place in the universe. You may have won this battle, but the war is far from over. The signal suddenly cut out, and the screen went dark. Sarah turned to Mark, worry in her eyes. What did we just do? No one answered. Because deep down, they all knew, the thing they had faced might have only been the beginning. Mark, Sarah, Ethan, and Dr. Lee stood frozen before the communicator that had just broadcasted the eerie message. A nameless fear crept into their minds. That voice. Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. It wasn't from the entity we destroyed, was it? Dr. Lee silently shook her head. No. I think it came from somewhere else. Something else is watching us. Mark clenched his fists. We need to get out of here immediately. If there's something else out there, we can't afford to be trapped. Ethan checked the system. The nearest exit is just a few 100 meters away, but I'm picking up another signal near it. Do we have another choice? Mark asked. Dr. Lee sighed. No. We have to keep moving forward. The team quickly left the wreckage site, heading toward their final escape route. As they moved through the long corridors, the dim light from their helmet lamps flickered over ancient carvings on the walls. Ethan stopped, his eyes widening. These carvings. Sarah stepped closer and felt a chill run down her spine. The images depicted a creature with hundreds of tentacles, surrounded by planets in the midst of destruction. It's not just a single entity, Dr. Lee said, her voice grim. It might be part of a species, or something even bigger. Mark clenched his jaw. We're dealing with a threat humanity has never encountered before. And then, just as they were about to leave the corridor, a strange sound echoed behind them. Sarah turned back. The darkness behind them was shifting. Boom. A surge of black energy shot out from the shadows, barely missing Mark. The team sprinted forward as the strange darkness chased them at terrifying speed. Ethan shouted while running. It's not the same entity we just destroyed. It's something else. Sarah threw an energy grenade behind her. Boom. A brilliant light flashed, making the darkness hesitate for a brief moment. Hurry! Mark shouted. The exit is right ahead. Dr. Lee desperately tried to input the code to open the door. The warning signal flashed, the system was damaged. Damn it, it's locked, she yelled. Sarah rushed forward, pulling out an emergency decoder. I need 30 seconds. We don't have 30 seconds. Ethan shouted as the darkness closed in. Mark turned back, raising his energy rifle and firing repeatedly. The blue beams lit up the shadows, but the creature remained unaffected. It's coming. Ethan screamed. The door is open. Sarah yelled, immediately pushing it wide. The team rushed through. Mark quickly activated the emergency lock, but a black tendril shot through, grabbing Ethan's leg. Ah! Ethan screamed as he was yanked backward. Mark and Sarah immediately grabbed him. Hold on tight. Mark shouted. Dr. Lee quickly pulled out a safety knife and slashed at the tendril. A chilling screech echoed, and the creature recoiled into the shadows. The door slammed shut. The team gasped for breath, their hearts pounding. We're not safe here, Mark said, wiping sweat from his forehead. We need to leave the moon immediately. Dr. Lee checked the screen. The Lunar Odyssey is still operational. If we hurry, we can escape. Sarah nodded. Then let's not waste any time. Even though Ethan was still shaken, he agreed. I don't want to stay here another second. Mark's team sprinted toward the Lunar Odyssey, while behind them, the shadows continued to move, as if watching them. They raced through the long corridors leading to the Lunar Odyssey. Their footsteps echoed in the eerie silence, accompanied only by their heavy breaths and the occasional alert from their comms. How much farther? Sarah asked, checking the map on her wrist display. About 500 meters, Mark replied, eyes locked forward. We're almost there. But then, a door ahead suddenly slammed shut. Damn it. The control system has been disabled. Dr. Lee shouted as she tried to access the panel. How? We didn't activate any security measures. Ethan panicked. Mark's expression darkened. It wasn't us. It was that thing. Behind them, the darkness rippled, as if something unseen was moving within it. We need another way. Sarah yelled. Ethan quickly scanned the map. There's an auxiliary tunnel to the right. But it hasn't been used in decades. Mark didn't hesitate. We don't have time to be picky. Move. The team veered right, sprinting into a dusty, abandoned passage. The place seemed long forgotten, but they had no other option. Behind them, the darkness surged forward, relentlessly pursuing them. Faster! Mark roared. Ethan stumbled, nearly getting pulled back, but Sarah grabbed him just in time. Thanks. Ethan gasped before continuing to run. Ahead, the lights of the Lunar Odyssey finally came into view. The ship's hatch was still open, beacon lights flashing. They were almost there. But just as they reached it, a monstrous roar echoed behind them, and a black tendril lashed out like a razor-sharp blade. Chapter 67, The Ship Takes Off. Get inside the ship, now. Mark shouted, shoving Sarah and Dr. Lee forward. Ethan turned back, his eyes widening in horror, as the darkness surged toward them like a tidal wave. Move, Ethan! Sarah screamed. Ethan pushed himself forward, leaping into the ship. Mark instantly shut the hatch. Boom! A tremendous impact struck the ship's hull, but it was sealed tight. Dr. Lee rushed to the controls. I'm starting the launch sequence. Ethan, still panting, glanced through the window. The darkness clung to the ship, as if trying to hold them back. Engines ready. Sarah yelled. Mark didn't hesitate. Launch, now. With a deafening roar, the Lunar Odyssey shot off the moon's surface. Below, the shadows began to recede, but deep within them, an eerie red eye gleamed with pure hatred. They had escaped, but were they truly safe? A few minutes later, or perhaps longer, a strange silence enveloped them. Sarah was the first to open her eyes. She felt weightless, as though there was no gravity. Around her, the dense black space they once knew was gone. Instead, vast ribbons of emerald light coiled like giant dragons. Crystals floated in mid-air, emitting mysterious beams of light. And in front of the ship, a massive planet appeared, with blinding rings of light surrounding it. Sarah gasped. We're no longer in the solar system. Mark swallowed hard, staring at the scene outside the window. We've just been transported to a completely unfamiliar place. Dr. Lee quickly tapped on the control panel, but all the coordinate data displayed zeros. Ethan gripped the armrest tightly. If we're no longer in the solar system, where are we? No one had an answer. But they all knew one thing. They had gone farther than anyone had ever gone before. The Lunar Odyssey drifted in the void of space, surrounded by shimmering emerald bands of light. In front of them, a strange planet with glowing rings emitted an eerie light, as if inviting or warning them. We may have traveled through space, Dr. Lee whispered, her eyes glued to the data screen. But the important question is, where are we? Sarah checked the navigation system. There are no coordinates that match our star maps. We're completely out of human comprehension. Mark frowned. If we can't figure out how to return, we might be stuck here forever. At that moment, a strange signal appeared on the radar screen. Beep. Beep. Ethan immediately switched the signal to the speakers. A strange voice echoed, the sound garbled as though distorted by space and time. Elp. Can you hear me? Everyone froze. We're not the only ones here, are we? Sarah whispered, her eyes wide with shock. Mark gripped the control panel. Answer them. Ask who they are. Ethan adjusted the frequency, his voice firm. This is the crew of the Lunar Odyssey, NASA. We just experienced a space shift and are lost. Who are you? Silence. Everyone held their breath, waiting. Then the voice came again, this time clearer. If you're still alive, you need to leave immediately. Why? Mark asked quickly. The signal was interrupted again, but they still heard one last sentence. Because something is hunting you. Beep. The signal was abruptly cut off. The control room fell into silence. They all looked at each other. No one said a word, but they all knew. They had fallen into a place more dangerous than anything they had ever imagined. The atmosphere in the control room grew heavy after the strange signal was cut off. Mark broke the silence. We can't ignore that warning. Ethan nodded, his fingers skimming the control panel. I'm scanning the surrounding area, but... He stopped, his eyes widening. Sarah furrowed her brow. What's happening? Ethan swallowed hard. There is an object moving toward us. Very fast. The whole control room tensed. Dr. Lee quickly checked the data, her voice trembling slightly. That object, it's not emitting thermal or magnetic signals. It doesn't resemble anything we've encountered. Mark gripped the control panel. Distance. Ethan looked at the radar screen. A red dot was speeding toward them at an incredible pace. Less than a minute. Sarah immediately activated the defense system. Can we avoid it? Boom. A violent shock shook the ship. The lights in the cabin flickered, alarms blared loudly. Mark shouted. We're being attacked. Ethan checked the system. No physical collision. But some strange form of energy just engulfed the ship. Dr. Lee quickly traced the data, her eyes widening in shock. Impossible. This energy is identical to the signals from the markings on the moon. Boom. Another collision threw the group forward. Sarah screamed. We have to leave immediately. Mark ordered. Activate the emergency engines. Get us out of this area now. Ethan pressed the switch, but all the control systems suddenly shut down. Deep voice echoed from the ship's speakers, as though some entity was speaking directly to them. You cannot escape. The radar screen went dark. Then, a massive metallic arm appeared outside the ship's window. The entire crew froze as they saw the gigantic metal arm outside the Lunar Odyssey's window. It was not human. Glowing purple veins ran along the smooth black metal, emitting a strange energy that distorted the space around it. Sarah gasped. It's a machine. Ethan checked the data. No artificial signals, but no biological signs either. It's not like any life form we've ever known. Mark gripped the armrest. Whatever it is, it's trying to capture us. Boom. The metallic arm touched the hull of the ship. The entire ship shook violently. Inside, the control systems flickered erratically. Dr. Lee screamed. We're losing power completely. The emergency systems aren't working. From outside, a massive red eye opened on the metallic arm. It cast an eerie beam of light into the control room. Sarah felt as if her head were being torn apart. Strange images flooded her mind. Planets scorched to ashes. Civilizations collapsing. Gigantic machines devouring all life. And then, a voice whispered in her mind. We are the hunters of the universe. Sarah staggered, her heart racing. She turned quickly to look at her teammates. But they were all frozen. All of them paralyzed by the red light. Only she remained, with a single choice. Sarah stood still, her body as if frozen by the power of the red light piercing every corner of the ship. Everything around her seemed to vanish, the ship, the space. Only she and the strange voice remained in her mind. You cannot escape. The whisper echoed in her mind. Sarah gritted her teeth, refusing to succumb. She ran to the control panel and placed her hand on the glass. If I do nothing, we will die. She thought of her companions. They had been through so many challenges together. They deserved to be saved. Sarah took a deep breath, determined to do something she had never thought possible. Auxiliary power systems. She began manipulating the control panel, reconnecting the electrical circuits from the auxiliary system. Suddenly, a flickering light appeared. It wasn't the red light, but a cold, blue light, the energy from the emergency system. She quickly reprogrammed the systems. Hope this is enough. There's only one choice. The voice in her mind spoke again. Sarah turned around, but this time, she wasn't afraid. She knew that if she didn't act now, they would lose everything. Together, or no one. With a firm push on the control panel, Sarah activated the propulsion system, blasting the ship out of the giant metallic arm. The entire ship rocked violently before launching into a different orbit, breaking free from the control of the alien entity. The Lunar Odyssey soared into space, leaving the giant metallic arm behind. Though they had escaped its grip, the entire ship still rocked, and the warning alarms continued blaring, signaling persistent errors. Sarah sat, breathing heavily, her hand still on the control panel. She couldn't believe she had done it, but the feeling that the space around them was changing was undeniable. It no longer felt cold and hazy, but as though an invisible wall was slowly expanding, surrounding the ship. Don't tell me we just escaped one trap, and now we're falling into another. Ethan spoke, his eyes still filled with concern. I can't explain it. Dr. Lee said, her gaze scanning the readings, the lines of data constantly shifting. The strange signals are still appearing. Mark stood, looking out the window. What is that? Before them, the wall of space continued to grow, like a giant living entity slowly enveloping the ship. Strange glowing veins stretched out, as if they were coiling around the ship, not letting them escape. We can't be trapped here again, Sarah said, her voice determined. Whatever this is, we have to break free. But as the Lunar Odyssey drew closer, the space wall thickened, as though it had pinpointed their path. Together, or no one. The voice from her mind echoed again, this time louder than ever. The space wall surrounded the Lunar Odyssey, thick and impenetrable. The light from the strange veins still shone into the ship, making everything seem distorted and unreal. Mark, Ethan, Sarah, and Dr. Lee stood closely together, gripping their control devices. They no longer knew what to do, for no matter what they tried, the ship couldn't escape the grip of this wall. It can't be. Sarah murmured, as if speaking to herself. If this wall is a form of living energy, we can't fight it with weapons or conventional technology. Dr. Lee stood still for a moment, then turned back with a look of determination. There's one possibility. Mark looked at her. What possibility? Dr. Lee quickly manipulated the control panel. We could try using the last tool we brought on our journey, the Moon Energy Regeneration device. If I can reconnect it and reconfigure it, we might activate a strong movement in this space. Ethan looked at her skeptically. Is that safe? Dr. Lee just smiled confidently. There's no other choice. Sarah looked at the screen and pointed to a point on the data chart. You have to hurry, we don't have much time. All right, Dr. Lee said and immediately began working. With every button she pressed, the ship's systems seemed to respond instantly, the blue light from the regeneration devices flickering intensely, growing brighter and brighter. The whole ship shook violently. Just as Dr. Lee finished reconfiguring the systems, the ship suddenly emitted a powerful beam of light from the energy regeneration tool. Everyone aboard felt as if they were caught in a whirlwind of energy, the space around them seemed to dissolve, and they could only feel themselves moving through different layers of the universe. This can't, we're changing space. Ethan yelled as the strange layers of space spun around them.